Hey, what's up? Diz here. Just getting ready to install my TKI belt drive on my 2017 Polaris AXYS. You know, before I start any job, I like to read through the instructions, lay out all my parts, and get the necessary tools to complete the job. Let's take a look at what we got here. Alright, as you can see, we have everything laid out that we're going to need. Bottom gear, belt, top gear, the two flanges associated with that, our tensioner assembly, the two bolts needed to mount it, a 3-inch bolt and locking nut for adjusting tension, and a replacement bolt for that bottom gear. We also have a heat gun, Loctite, an Allen wrench, a 9/16 wrench, a 3/4 driver with extension and 15mm socket, a 1/4-inch driver with a T40 star bit, and then to wrap it all up, we got our torque wrench with a 13 and a 15mm socket. So we've already removed the side panel. As you can tell, I have a turbo in there. Maybe you have the stock canister or can. You're going to want to pull those out, or if you have a smaller canister, you might be able to work around it. This sled also has electric start, so I've already removed the battery and the battery holder so that we can see better what's going on in there and get better access. Take a look. Alright, as you can see, this sled already has a belt drive. If you have an Assault, it might have a chain case, and you might ask, why do you want to replace this belt drive? Well, the stock belt drive has no tensioner. It also doesn't have any options to change the top gear to adjust your ratios. So that's where the TKI kit really shines. Now, before we remove these two bolts, we want to make sure to apply the brake so that these gears don't free spin while we're trying to remove them. With the brake applied, we can go ahead and use our 3/4 driver with extension and 15mm socket and go ahead and remove these two gears. Remember, we're going to reuse this top bolt, so we're going to set it over on the table with our other parts. Now, they've had a high failure rate with this bottom bolt, but thanks to TKI, we don't have to worry about that because they provide a much stronger bolt for its replacement. All right, once you get those bolts out, get those top gears off. Sometimes they want to come off, sometimes they don't. You might have to get in behind them with the pry bar depending on how tight they are. Yeah, this bottom gear can be pretty tough to get out. Sometimes you got to walk it off. And then remove your belt. Next, we need to remove these two bolts with the T40 out of the bulkhead. Now they use their structural glue to Loctite these, so you're going to have to apply some heat, not directly to the bolt head, but to the bulkhead, the casting itself. And I'm going to use my Milwaukee heat gun to get that done. Alright, I've had the heat gun on there for a few minutes. Pretty screaming hot. See if we got that glue loose. Don't forget, that bolt's going to be hot. Alright, let's move that heat down to the bottom one. See, once you warm up that glue, it'll break free, no problem. Ooh, that's hot. Okay, in order to mount the tensioner, we're going to have to remove the tensioner from its mounting bracket to access the holes. That's a 9/16 wrench. I'll take that and set that to the side. Now we'll have access to the appropriate holes for the mounting bracket. Okay, you can see we have our mounting bracket here. The flat side's going to go against the chassis, and we got our two cap screws to mount it. You want to put a little Loctite on our screws, Flat side to the chassis, there's a little tab, and that's going to be right up by that top bolt. Now it's going to be a little tight. I hadn't figured that out before. It's going to be a little tight on that bottom because it's right up against the plastic. So I'll have a straight Allen that I can grab instead of this L, which sometimes you just don't know. We're going to need the straight one anyway. I wasn't thinking, because we're going to have to torque these bolts down to 25 foot-pounds. All right, we got our torque wrench set to 25 pounds. Just make sure we set these cop screws. Next, we're going to put the top flange on. This one is the back one and has a larger hole. And then you're going to put your top gear on. The face, or the outward facing portion of the gear, will have some engraving. It'll also only fit on one way due to the spacing on the flange. Next, we're going to put on the bottom gear. Alright, now that we got the bottom gear on, we want to use the replacement bolts supplied by TKI along with the original washer. Don't forget to use Loctite. We don't want this backing out on us. The original bolt was a 15 millimeter, but the replacement one is a 13. Now that we got both gears on, we can go ahead and put on my belt. Now I've noticed I've left part of my brake mount assembly there, and it doesn't have enough clearance to get my belt on. So I'm going to have to take a second and remove this before I apply the belt. Now that I've removed the rest of the battery mounting bracket, I have plenty of room to slip my belt in. Now that we got the belt on, we're going to put some Loctite on that top bolt. Put the front flange on. Has a setting that goes inside that gear. Oops. Next, we're going to apply the tensioner. You can see there's two holes on the bracket. The bottom part of the tensioner is going to go in that top hole. We want to make sure that we obviously Loctite the bolt. You can just finger tighten that for now. Once we get them both in there, we'll drop the tensioner bolt in and then adjust the tension to the proper deflection. Now we're going to take our 3-inch bolt, put our locking nut on it, and apply it to the back of the tensioner. Now depending on what, if you have a can, or you may need to trim this bolt for clearance, but you can see with my silver turbo I have plenty of room to get it in there. Before adjusting final belt deflection, we want to go ahead and torque down those gear bolts. Remember, the bottom one's a 13 now, and this is going to go to 45 foot-pounds. And the top one's still that original 15. It also is going to get the 45 foot-pounds. Now that we got our gear bolts torqued, we can release the brake, grab our 9/16 wrench, and adjust the belt deflection. It'd be about 1/8 to 3/16 of deflection. That looks about right. Then you can go ahead and tighten down that locking nut. And then we want to tighten down our two Once we got the proper belt deflection, we're going to go ahead and tighten down the top and bottom bolt 25 foot-pounds. Alright, there you go. We got the TKI belt drive installed. We're going to go ahead and take it off the sled lift, take it up and down the driveway, make sure everything's set, and then recheck all those bolts. Alright, that wraps up our install of the TKI belt drive from TKI CNC. Let's recap some of the issues that we had along the way on our install. First off, this unit had electric start and I only tried to remove part of the battery bracket, and I ran into a little bit of clearance issue when I put the belt on the bottom gear. So you're going to need to remove that whole bracket before you start. In our tools list, we talked about using an Allen wrench, and I showed a bent one. You're going to need a straight one for clearance, and also when you use your torque, when you're torquing that bracket down to 25 pounds. Don't forget, you want to heat the cast, not the bolts, when you're removing those original T40 star bolts. Also, we needed a 9/16 socket to torque down and tighten the tensioner to the bracket. Other than that, it was a pretty straightforward install. Thanks for checking it out, and we'll see you on the mountain.